turmeric, lemon, and manuka honey thing.
Manuka honey.
That is very healthy.
Yeah.
That's really healthy.
It's yeah.
Well, we're having fun. Welcome to the broadcast. We're kind of going live in the middle of CC eating. I'm Jeremy Long, and normally this would be like levels, but this is levels with TFC. We got Mike Price, and we have LV Sports Biz with Mr. Alan Snel. Thank you guys so much for, I was going to say taking time, but I mean, we ain't got crap to do. So, I mean, you know, thanks for showing up on camera, I guess.
Yeah.
What's going on, guys?
Oh, man. As you can see, I got Netflix going on in the back here. So that's what I've been doing.
Beautiful background, Mike. Very impressive.
Yeah. Everything from documentaries to killer thrillers to kid flicks. I'm catching up on kid flicks.
Okay. You got Disney Plus?
No, I'm cheap. I'm cheap. I don't have that. I just got a bill, though, from Smash Business or something like that. And I was like, what is this company? Why do they take $4.99 a month from me? And it's the UFC thing, you know, or the ESPN. The ESPN payments. So I'm like, you know what? I don't need to give anybody else any money. And I know that's a rant, but we have time. We have time. That's what I'm doing.
Well, you know what? Luckily, we got a few things to talk about this week. It may not be live sports, but we do have some sports news to talk about. So, you know, let's kick it off with the news that just kind of broke just a little while ago. To no one's surprise, UFC 249 has been canceled. And for the absolute latest, to the man who's actually been texting with Dana White on this, I'm going to turn it over to Alan Snel. Alan, what is going on? What was Dana's mind thought, and what's the latest with 249 here?
Well, this is a big story because Dana White, in the face of this pandemic, has been forging ahead, saying that he was going to have the 249 event. It was originally slated for the Barclays Center up in Brooklyn, and then, if you recall, there was a period of time when they thought they could have it at the Apex venue, which is right next door to the UFC headquarters off of the 215 Beltway. And then the pandemic hit and the shutdowns hit and the stay-at-home orders hit and all the leagues shut down. But Dana White, being Dana, just forged right ahead. He insisted he was going to have UFC 249. Habib could not get out of Russia. So I think he got Justin off the bench to take on Tony Ferguson as the headliner. And all along, the original text to me from last week was that Dana White said that he was going to have a U.S. domestic location for 249, and he was going to have this fight island for international events. And as you mentioned, Jeremy, just today, Dana texted me and informed me that 249 is off. It was going to be at a tribal venue right it's going to be on tribal lands at a venue outside of Fresno. And I'll read you the direct quote from Dana. He said, Disney asked me to step down and postpone, and I love and respect our partnership, so I agreed to. As you know, ESPN has a very lucrative broadcast rights deal with UFC, and they have been promoting UFC amazingly in the past year under the deal. What's interesting is that the Fight Island is still in play, and that it will host UFC fight events during the coronavirus pandemic. And his quote to me in the text was, we'll have that up and running ASAP. And then he mentioned that he still plans to have the infrastructure built at the Fight Island. And he said under the deal, ESPN will actually broadcast some of the international events from this so-called Fight Island. So even though Dana White kind of quote unquote lost the first round in terms of having UFC 249 at the tribal property outside Fresno, he still plans to soldier on and have events. I did ask him point blank, will you move the 249 card to this island? And he said he still doesn't know. So that it's still within the realm of possibility that he might move 249 to this island location, which he plans to have ready for international events, even without UFC 249 there.
You know, Alan, what were your first thoughts when Dana just decided to forge ahead and against kind of conventional wisdom and through, you know, all the things that were going on? I mean, what was the thought process you had? I mean, you talk with him pretty regularly and everything. I mean, we expect this kind of stuff from Dana White. If you tell him no, he's gonna try to move ahead the best he can. But was this a smart move, or was this more kind of hype for hoping to pull an event like this off?
Well, I thought it was Dana being Dana. I don't think it was a shenanigan kind of move just for the pure sake of, you know, free publicity. You know, Dana is I think the reason people, I think, flock to UFC is its authenticity, and it comes off the top. I think, you know, Dana White sets the tone, and I think he was being real in terms of like forging ahead and trying to stage these events. That's Dana. I mean, the putting on fights is part of his DNA. It's in his blood. I know that UFC has a very famous quote in their building, which is fighting is in the human being's DNA. You can kind of debate that all you want. I will say this: putting on fight shows is in Dana White's DNA, and that's just who he is. I don't think it was a promotional stunt. I think he was legit in forging ahead, and you know, his ambition and, you know, UFC's commitment to these fight shows is what makes UFC the worldwide leader in MMA presentations and fight shows. I mean, they put on spectacles, and you know, the pay-per-view aspect was going to bring in a lot of revenue as well. And you know, having the original, you know, Khabib was, you know, there was a chance that he was going to come back from Russia, but that ended up not happening. So, you know, I think it's just Dana being Dana. You know, the stuff didn't really surprise me. You know, all the leagues shut down, and you know, the thing about this April 18th event, if he was able to pull this off, the ratings would have been high, and he was the only show in town nationally.
Yeah, you know what? And I'm going to chime in there. I think I did the whole Monty on my emotions about the Dana being Dana. I hated on him from, you know, that aspect. And then I thought about it, what Alan was just alluding to, that I was watching, and I think UFC was on the first Saturday with the only live sports that Saturday with no attendees. And I watched it. I didn't know who was fighting. It was in the middle of the afternoon. I didn't care, but it was live sports. So from that aspect, I get it. You know, as much money as he's probably losing by not having it being attended, he was going to make up for that money and recoup it with pay-per-view. But on that other end of it, Dana being Dana and saying that he was just doing it, you know, because that's in his DNA. I don't know if that's just a possible thing, knowing everything that was going on or everything that is going on internationally. And so I got to go with, man, sometimes you just have to pull back what you're doing. And on this one, I think Dana kind of pushed the envelope a little too far.
Well, certainly the folks at Disney and ESPN agreed with that. And at the end of the day, he had to back off because he does value his relationship, you know, with ESPN. You know, I talk with Cassandra all the time about how ESPN promotes UFC through the roof. I mean, the programming they put on ESPN2, you know, just kind of feature programs, that's like free hour-long advertisements to promote that brand. And I can understand Dana at the end of the day backing down only because he does not want to harm that relationship.
Yeah, what an incredibly delicate relationship that is too, you know, especially during this time. I mean, I at first, you know, I was like, you know what, that's Dana being Dana, like Alan said. And I really do appreciate the efforts that Dana, not only Dana, but also we saw last weekend with Vince McMahon and WrestleMania and these kind of events. And I really honestly do appreciate when these promoters are trying to step up and give us live entertainment. And yeah, I mean, they may be trying to make some bucks for themselves and everything. But at the end of it, when you look at all the things that could possibly go wrong, from other people being infected to just the different outcomes that you could have right there, at the end of the day, I think, they're making the right decision, just canceling this altogether. It's not like if they have Nurmagomedov versus Ferguson later on the summer or in August or September, it's going to be any less event. I think it's going to be an even bigger event because people are wanting now to see it more. Cassandra, what do you think the litmus test is? I mean, how are people going to respond if this fight ever freaking happens? Because this is the 5th time this fight's been scheduled, and now we have a global pandemic. I'm blaming it all on Khabib and Tony.
Yeah, MMA fans are and UFC fans specifically are a very unique bunch, and so they would be willing to risk it all actually for that Khabib and Tony fight. And so I think it's going to be just as people are going to complain no matter what, but it's going to be just as big as it ever was, whether it's on Fight Island or if he's going to put it in that casino on tribal land. But I think the right decision was made because I thought about it wasn't just about can you spread COVID-19 amongst the fighters, the camp, and anyone who attends. But at any fight, there's going to be a need for a fighter to go to a hospital. And so putting the undue stress on an emergency room or any kind of medical facility for no other reason but entertainment was really reckless. And then the price was still $70. How you gonna still charge people $70 who are sitting on their couch unable to work? Dana, man,
this particular virus is really different from previous ones. Obviously, you can be a silent carrier. There could be someone from ESPN who doesn't even know, feels fine, is carrying the virus, and might unwittingly pass it on there. And as we've seen, the outbreaks are very volatile. I mean, all you need is one event to just create a very intense outbreak. So I happen to agree. At the end of the day, it was actually the correct call.
Yeah, absolutely. The only great thing I think we're going to get out of this, silver linings, is how interested are you guys in something called Fight Island? I would watch this show. It reminds me of Mortal Kombat. You ever see that movie Mortal Kombat back in the day?
Yes.
They were on an island. They got to fight.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in seeing Fight Island out of this.
You fight or something where Godzilla and King Kong, that's where you go to save them, man.
Mothra.
Yeah.
Mothra.
Well, I just remember reading a book called Lord of the Flies where they just I thought it was kind of like kids at an island. I thought they were going to have a fight, kind of like Lord of the Flies kind of thing.
Yeah, that book scared the hell out of me when I was young.
Like me so.
That's a perfect depiction of it. You know what, Alan? I got a question for you though. Having these fights on an island or on tribal land and kind of scaled back, does that do anything to the brand? Dana, I feel like has worked really hard over the past 20 years to build UFC to be a world-class sports organization. And now you kind of make it this kitschy kind of thing. What does that do to the value?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, UFC is built on this spectacle kind of, fight show. And, very few sports organizers, very few, sports presentations put on a show quite like UFC. That said, I think this is the asterisk to that is that the caveat is that it is very bizarre, crazy, surreal, strange times right now. And I think people would give him a break and give him a little rope in terms of, they'd give him a break on the fact that it would not come on. It would not obviously look like a UFC event per se. I mean, these are, obviously, we've seen these, that's the thing about MMA. We've seen them everywhere in every kind of settings, and it would kind of, go back to that kind of, I mean, if you think about MMA, the roots really is about having it in basically backyards and having it in people's, like backyard lawns, having brawls. I mean, that's kind of a lot of the roots of like that kind of, Fight Club kind of mentality. So Yeah, it wouldn't be the spectacle that UFC fans are used to, but on the other hand, I think people would give him a break.
You know,
Given the circumstances we're under right now.
The first rule of Fight Club, Alan. Don't talk about Fight Club. Come on.
Yeah, the first rule is just to text as much information as you can.
You know,
Jerry, do you remember early on when Dana White had really had a very contentious relationship with tribal land? Do you remember like that background of that story?
Yeah. I mean, Dana, but this okay. Dana White's the modern promoter, right? He is the modern Don King. So everything Dana White has said, he's at one time gone against, or
he's probably had. I mean, he's had fights with everyone, but then he, look, that's just part of the gamemanship.
Remember when Dana White said that women would never be in the UFC, and it was, of course, never headline, and of course Ronda Rousey, does what she does and everything. But yeah, Dana White used to make fun of Bjorn Rebney, who headed up Bellator for a while. Of course, they started at going to casinos and doing these kind of things, and he called it amateurish bush league, I think is the word he kind of used. But I think this is a different landscape, and you kind of got to do what you got to do. But
and also keep in mind that it would kind of look, the setting would be kind of kitschy, but at the end of the day, the pay-per-view dollars trumps everything.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what would separate it. But I will say this, and I kind of shared this with a couple of folks through text message. I used to help promote amateur MMA events in Texas, and we did, I think, one show on Indian at the Indian casino on the reservation, and it was something else. I mean, the refs and judges and everyone, the cornermen and the timekeeper, all the way down, none of them are sanctioned. These are just people that are part of the tribe. So it just enhances the danger. And I told Cassandra in text message that if you're a fighter and you fight on Indian land with these kind of unsanctioned events, you have to finish your fights, because if you leave it to the judges, you have no idea how these folks are. And you have to understand, they're not used to scoring events. They're just putting on an event on this land. So you have to go out there and finish those fights. And even then, you might have to put somebody in the ground to get an ultimate decision. Just because that kind of stuff is really crazy out there.
Emotions.
Yeah, it really is. But Cece, you kind of mentioned the hardcore fans showing up to the events. We don't have to sell to the unconverted MMA or boxing fan for these kind of events. But Alan, you had a really interesting story on lvbizsports.com about Seton Hall and their survey about sporting events and live sporting events and how people would take in these events. Tell us about the story in the Seton Hall survey.
Right. The backstory to the whole issue is that eventually all the major leagues will have to reintegrate into American society. And all these leagues have major challenges because, the whole atmosphere of these games are built really on a fan atmosphere that is part of the experience. It's why teams can get away with charging $100, $150, $200 for tickets. So Seton Hall University came out with a poll that said that 72% of Americans would not go to a sports game if a vaccine for the virus was not available and if it was not developed. In fact, let me just read you some of the poll results. I was just kind of calling it up here. 72% of Americans say that they would not attend games. 12% saying they would only attend games if social distancing would be maintained. Only 13% that said they would feel safe attending, as in the past. And among the sports fans, the number drops to a still significant 61%. So I actually wrote the story and posted it on social media on different platforms and asked for some reaction. And the story right now is on lvsportsbiz.com. And it has a lot of, I did snip and save a lot of reactions that I put in the story. And there were a lot of people who felt that way. But listen, you're going to have some hardcore fans who just, if the doors are open, they're going to come back. But I think there is a concern, and you guys can discuss this as well. I think there is a concern among fans about their safety, given the kind of mentality that we have right now. You have to understand, when you go to the store, the majority of people are wearing face covers. I mean, they're wearing masks and some other bandanas and what have you. We're being told literally every night by our governor, Steve Sisolak, here in Nevada, to be conscious about social distancing. He got really ticked off and closed the faucet even more in terms of banning people from going to public golf courses, no skate parks, no basically outdoor athletic socializing, because he got ticked off at the photos that he was seeing. And it's against this backdrop that teams will have to figure out a way to win the confidence back of fans to come and still charge premium prices. Now, we can talk about this one topic, and I would anticipate there'll be at least 2 to 4 to maybe even 6 weeks of an interim period where games are played without fans and everything is driven by TV broadcasts. And hopefully the interest would be built back up through the broadcasts of the games, whether it be NBA or MLB or hockey, whatever. But I think it's a legitimate topic to discuss about. Number one, will fans feel comfortable about returning to arenas where you have 18,000 people, crammed into a venue? And then don't forget, we have a football stadium coming online in 4 months. We're talking about 65,000 people set to show up for a Garth Brooks concert August 22nd. And would you feel comfortable with 60,000 other people, standing side by side 4 months from now?
Yeah,
I think these are legitimate questions that have to be addressed.
Yeah, no, I was actually speaking on this yesterday, and everyone assumes that once we can go back outside, that everyone's just going to rush out and to do any and everything. But as Alan and the report was saying, that I don't know if I want to be next to people, especially once we know, especially with Las Vegas. We're talking about how it affects sport. Think about how it's going to affect Las Vegas as well. Are people just going to jump on planes and come back out here to Vegas, which is an international spot? I think this is a bigger landscape that people are going to want to get out, but then they're going to go, I think I'm just going to go to the park. I think I'm just go sit at the lake. I think I'm just going to do this.
The living room still look good.
Yeah, because this thing is huge. It's huger than we ever anticipated. We have the people we have the mask everywhere. Just think about the first time we're in an arena and someone coughs. Come on now, people, this shit's gonna be crazy, man. It's gonna be crazy.
Somebody's gonna get beat down. I even think about the workers, like us in the media, being willing to go in. Someone like Doris Burke, for instance, who is a cancer survivor, travels extensively to cover games for ESPN. What that's going to do for her, and if she'd be willing to travel and to be in these arenas. People with families or living with someone who has a pre-existing condition. It's, I agree with you, Mike, that just because the open sign goes on, being outside is open again, I don't think people are going to rush to get involved the same way that they were just, February.
I think that's really interesting because you have with CC and Mike in particular. I mean, Mike is more, you're a hardcore fan. I mean, you want to go to every game. You're that guy. There's we don't have to convert you. CC, you're a little more. I mean, you got younger kids and all that stuff, so you're a little more cautious, but you're a part of the media. I think it's great dynamics. I mean, how safe, Mike? I'll start with you, Mike. How safe would you feel, or are you going to feel after all this is going? I mean, to attend these games?
Well, no, I don't think I'm going to feel safe at all. It's, especially with it being Las Vegas, we are the hub. If it's going to come through, and if it's San Francisco, it's Las Vegas, it's New York. It's the big international places.
Dude,
For me,
it's Japan.
a game, I'm not going to feel safe. And I need to know that there is a vaccine out there, because if I catch it, man, I'm sitting here today, and not to try to bring Don Trotton into a conversation where my family priest is in the hospital with the virus right now. So, when everyday people are doing everyday things, like you can do it just going to a basketball game and watching a game. So it'll be a minute. It's going to be a minute for me.
Well, I think Mike touched on a really important aspect about the Las Vegas market. The Las Vegas market is a tourism-based market. You have people from around the world, around the country coming here. We have no idea what kind of virus situations are back in the hometowns of these people who might be coming with the virus from all places around the country, all places from around the world, and they're going to even a Golden Knights game. You have 18,000 people, and you have a healthy percentage of them who are tourists, out-of-towners. Same thing with the football stadium. I will tell you that those Raiders games will be 40 to 50% at least out-of-state, out-of-town people. Who knows where they were? I mean, who knows? Especially, what if people are coming from New York that has had a severe outbreak? I mean, what's the numbers on that? About 30, 40% of all the cases and deaths in New York, the metro New York City area. So because of the fact that Las Vegas is a tourist hub, you're going to have people, come from all over the country. And, who knows, what the situations are in their hometowns. I think Steve Sisolak has done a decent job in the state of Nevada trying to keep the net numbers down as realistically as possible. And we're lucky in Nevada. Any death is horrible, but, we have about 80 to 85 people who have passed away because of this virus. That's in villages and towns in New York,
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's going to be very interesting to see. You guys alluded to, these places and these sporting venues and things like that, they're going to have to go above and beyond to, give that safety factor to people, give that safety, even if you want to call it theater, safety theater to people, give them the as much safety precautions as humanly possible.
I think it's going to have to be phased in, Jeremy. I think it'll, be without fans initially. Yeah. Who knows? At Golden Knights games, they might have to initially allow only, 25% of the fans in. They might have to have 2 seats between fans initially. And then have sanitizer stations all around the place. I think it's going to have to be phased in. This is not a black and white issue where you just turn the switch on and everyone's heading out to the games. I think, the sports will have to work with the arena operator, with the local jurisdictions and health officials, and they're going to have to come to a game plan where this is phased in, I think, in different stages over a period of time.
What's going to happen is that once people do start returning to these arenas, if there's an outbreak anywhere, it's just going to be shut down immediately. So I think, to your point, Alan, if they don't phase it in and at least make an attempt, we could be right back in a pandemic by November.
Yeah, it's definitely changing the way we're going to be doing and attending sports and consuming sports, at least for the next, 18 to 24 months.
Yeah, there you go.
But Dana said this. You remember, Alan, I don't even remember, they're all running together now, but maybe the last UFC event or the one before that, Dana White did say that he expected this to impact his business for the entire rest of the year. So they had been, this was January, the January card. So they knew, very early on that this was coming. Same thing.
Right. And if there's one sports organization in the country that can accommodate this, it's UFC. They are the best at the one-off event. They create spectacles. You have to understand, they put on spectacles all around the world. We kind of look at them as it's true, they're a local Las Vegas-based organization, but they extend to venues in a lot of different countries, in a lot of different cultures. In fact, they're used to dealing with local authorities. It's funny, we're used to like the ring girls or the octagon girls or, whatever they're called, in kind of like bikinis and bathing suits, kind of like outfits. You go to some countries, they can't pull that kind of stuff off. I mean, UFC knows exactly how to build a one-off event. So, if there's ever an organization that's going to be able to, weather this horrible, plague-like situation, it's UFC, and it'll be interesting to see, how Dana tries to pull this off.
Well, you know what? And I think the reason that UFC is able to pull it off, again, it is because they're able to pull off a one-off. It's because the sports translates. It's just like boxing. I think boxing, if it was a little further what they're doing, they need to catch back up to where they were. They translate well as well, where they can take their event and take it to any country, and you know what it is, and they've been following it. Whereas basketball and football, those aren't sports that are really international sports. The players are international players, and they're integrating these sports, internationally. Basketball, the big impact in China and Europe, and football, with what they're doing by taking several games overseas a year. But with boxing, hell, there's probably somebody getting their ass whooped right now in the ring. We just don't know about it.
Or in the backyard, or in Walmart.
That's kind of a funny point. I got to tell you a story about the fact I did a cross-country bicycle trip when in my 20s. I was bicycling through Montana on US 2, which runs parallel to the Canadian border. I was going through a little town and was talking with a local historian. And one of the funny stories he told me was that, like, back in the 1920s or something, they actually built a temporary wooden stadium for like a Jack Dempsey versus local fighter boxing match.
Nice.
This is Montana out in the boonies, and they built a wooden. They literally built a wooden temporary stadium for a boxing match in the middle of Montana in the high prairie. When I think whoever it was, Dempsey or some, one of the great old boxers,
right?
Like some local guy.
Hey, I think Jorge Masvidal started in Dada 5000's backyard. So there you go.
There you go.
He really did. Another thing that we can't overlook is not just how it's going to impact the fans, but when it comes to combat sports, the fighters, these guys got stuff coming out of every orifice of their body. And if there's an opportunity for an athlete to get sick, this is the industry where they are most susceptible to getting sick or to passing it on. We don't have a whole lot of information on the background of Rose Namajunas and why she dropped out, other than 2 of her family members have passed away due to COVID-19. We could start to see a little bit more of that happen. Every one of us knows somebody or knows somebody who is either very sick or has passed away as a result. And so the fighters being part of the population, this could happen to them as well.
Yeah, that's very true. And like you said, I mean, the usual suspects for fighters are like staph and things like that, and just how susceptible these fighters are because of the close contact in which they are in association with each other and everything. But put this on top of that, and it just opens up a whole different can of worms.
Right. Yeah. The good news, Jeremy, I'm just going to read some other stats from the Seton Hall poll, is that even if they put the games on TV or broadcast them, they would not necessarily lose the fans, which is a good issue for the league and for the teams. I'll read a couple of these poll statistics. For the possibility of playing games with no fans present, 76% said they would watch the broadcast of the games with the same interest as before, which is pretty impressive, with only 16% saying they would be less interested and 7% saying they would actually be more interested. Even though sport fans miss their sports, 76% said sports shut down the leagues at the right time. 16% said not quickly enough. 6% said too quickly. As far as the Olympics, the numbers go even higher. 84% of the people said that the IOC acted correctly in postponing the games to 2021. And regarding workers, asked whether teams have an obligation to pay daily arena and stadium workers for their time missed because of the virus. 59% said yes, 33% said no. So I thought it was interesting that 76% of the folks actually said that they would maintain their interest in the product if they were just watching it on TV instead of going to the games in person, which I thought was, that at least is a good sign for the teams and the leagues.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You put on a live basketball game right now, and I'll freaking watch it, man. But going to the first point about the stadium opening with 65,000 Garth Brooks fans, and that's scary enough as it is, not without a COVID outbreak. So, if you love Garth Brooks,
not going to happen.
So
name one Garth Brooks song, Mike.
Who?
You know one? You know the title of any Garth Brooks song?
No, I do not.
What about Born to Run?
Who sings that?
I guess Garth Brooks.
No, I'm just messing with you.
Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
If Springsteen showed up, maybe I would show up. But I got to tell you, as a journalist who covers a lot of events across the board, right now, I would be very suspect in showing up really any place right now, and we'll cross that river when it happens, but it'll be interesting to see what happens when, quote unquote, the buildings open up, and even whether journalists will go and cover that.
I don't know.
We're all looking at you,
I'm
Steve.
sitting here thinking about some other ways.
Man.
Ways to get things done, because
well, even at the national press conferences when the coronavirus task force is having their press briefings, I read a report that the journalists actually had to take a test to get into the press conference.
Well,
yeah.
good for them. I mean, that's being responsible. I do find it interesting when they have those press conferences, everyone at the podium is standing right next to each other. They're not at all practicing social distance.
That is kind of weird that the people on the stage seem like they're awfully close when everyone around the country is being lectured and ostracized for hanging out with each other at a golf course,
Not Governor Sisolak, man. He got space in his thing.
But
These are wide lanes.
It's going to be amazing, because I know this is a sports show, but this pandemic it's changed so much, and we know that there's going to be things that are never going to be the same again. It's just like airports and 9/11. That just changed the whole landscape on how we traveled. Now you just can't roll up. Well, it's getting close again when you can roll up, but you just can't roll up. You can't hug your family going up to the gate.
Well, Mike just brought up a good point.
Yeah.
I didn't Fauci bring up the point about maybe that the old handshake might have to be a thing of the past.
Hey.
Yeah. There you
bump.
go. Let's give it fist bump.
No, hey, after
I
all
might go
this
just
is over, y'all can still vote for me.
Don't teach all that. The old brother nod. What up, dog? What up, bro?
All right, so moving on to some NFL, and then we got the NFL draft coming up April 23rd to 25th. Of course, it's going to be televised, and I don't think even the draft prospects are even going to be live there. So it's going to be kind of a new kind of look at it. But Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback from Alabama, he participates in a videotaped workout for scouts. Basically, the former Alabama star ran through about 55 scripted throws and trying to set the mood for scouts, like showing them that his ankle is healthy and everything's going on with him. And they did it with fewer than 10 people present. My thoughts to you, and I'm going to start with MP on this one. How would usually all this time leading up to this would have been players who may be on the fringe, not necessarily first round players, but players who may be on the fringe of being drafted and second and third round guys kind of jostling for position there. This would be that time where they're meeting with scouts, having private workouts, having pro days, going through all these motions. How is this going to affect this year's draft class for the NFL, Mikey?
Wow. I mean, I don't think too much. Everybody kind of knows who they want from this point. You know, football, once we got through the season for college football, you have your people training, you had your senior bowls out there. Agents have been talking to players and vice versa. We have the workout. I can forget what it's called, but, you know, we have the nationally televised where every guy goes and sit in a bar for about an hour and watches daily for 3 days. You know, we've had all of that. So everybody knows who they want. There's him going out there. That I think that was more for his self-confidence. But coaches know, you know, they know what it's going to take for him to rehabilitate Tua. And they also know, you know, what he can do when he's a healthy Tua. So if they're going to take him, they're still going to take him. They may trade down to take him depending on where, you know, what they think he can get in value if they don't have to take him as high. You know, from my understanding, there's been talked about the Detroit Lions. I don't know if that's why you put me on the hot seat with this one first, going after, and then them trading Matthew Stafford. But who knows, man? This is it's one of those seasons where it's not a lot of players, man. It's just not a lot of players that everyone's going, oh, I need this guy. Oh, I need that guy. College was kind of strange this year. Basketball was the same way, but there's really no standouts. I mean, if you can tell me someone, you know, other than a quarterback who you would take, please let me know.
Right. Alan, what do you think?
Well, the NFL draft to me is an interesting topic because it was one of those mega events that Las Vegas was really going to cash in on. And I was at the Clark County Commission meeting when the NFL representatives came to present its plan for this really over-the-top Super Las Vegas style live event. It was going to be from the 23rd to the 25th. It involved the Caesars Forum. It involved the Bellagio fountains, and it'll be interesting to see. I'm kind of curious. You know, the one thing that this pandemic has made is that you have like sports manifesting itself in all kinds of bizarre forms. We had the NBA coming out with this 8-player horse competition today, and the NHL has a trivia show being put on by PK Subban, who's a defenseman for the New Jersey Devils. And now you're talking about probably one of the most bizarre-looking drafts in terms of, you know, presentation. You want to understand, I believe the general managers will be in their own homes, I believe, of pulling this off. And there've already been a lot of jokes about the New England Patriots, you know, pulling some, you know, stunts to hack the whole, you know, they're probably hiring the best kind of hacker in the business, you know, to kind of pull a fast one so they can get, you know, some kind of mystery draft pick or something. So I'm kind of looking at this as the ultimate train wreck. I mean, I think it's going to be a bizarre-looking event where, you know, it's kind of funny. You know, as we sit in our homes today, I've gotten a kick out of just watching TV and all these interviews and getting a peek at some of these people's homes. You know, and it's been kind of funny to see, like, to get a peek inside, you know, the Chris Cuomo basement there. You know. Where, you know, he has, like, his basement is nicer than 95% of people's homes, you know. I mean, so I think it'll be an interesting, entertaining event, and I think the ratings will be very high. And, you know, it's a far cry than what was going to happen with the hundreds of thousands of people of, you know, descending on the Strip the 23rd to the 25th. They were going to close the Flamingo intersection there, and, you know, they were going to close the Strip for a couple other days because they were going to fashion a huge stage out by the Caesars Forum, and they're going to have, you know, they were going to have these goofy boats in the Bellagio pond there, you know, having like a red carpet kind of feel. I mean, and all that is out the window, and I'm kind of curious visually what this draft is going to look like.
That's going to be crazy. Do they just punt on the Las Vegas draft, or is there a chance of it coming back next year?
Well, I would think that it will come back in a year or two. And this, like, obviously, I mean, I don't know why people thought like, oh, Las Vegas is going to get a Super Bowl. Incredible. Well, guess what? When you build a new stadium on the public dime, the NFL gives the host town a Super Bowl. Like, that's just par for the course. That's how it works. So there was no mystery about whether Las Vegas would get a Super Bowl. Las Vegas will get a Super Bowl, in the first year or two after the ones that have been already fulfilled. And the same goes with the draft. If the draft isn't here next year, I'm sure it'll be here in the next year or two.
I believe NFL Vice President Peter O'Reilly came out and said that next year, of course, the draft is in Cleveland. 2022, it's actually empty for some reason. And in 2023, it's going to be in Kansas City. So they're trying to angle for Vegas to kind of get a redo or another shot at it in 2022.
Oh, you're right. But I will tell you, the fact that they had to scrub the draft here in Las Vegas, that almost makes it certain, I think, that Las Vegas will be eligible for the Super Bowl, the first possible city after the next. I think the next 3 cities are booked. Next 3 years, I should say, and the first one after that, I wouldn't be surprised in 5 years. Las Vegas gets the first Super Bowl available.
I wouldn't doubt it. I hope it. I can't wait to attend it in my own backyard. Moving on to NCAA. Last month, the NCAA approved an extension of eligibility, can't talk, for athletes in spring sports. Of course, all the spring sports that were supposed to be happening right now. And it relaxed the scholarship limits to allow seniors in spring sports to return next season to complete their academic year, but left it up to the individual colleges whether they wanted to do this or not. Wisconsin came out today and says it will not bring back seniors in spring sports next year, basically saying that their careers as Badgers is totally over. CC, I'm going to start with you. Is that fair for Wisconsin to say, hey, basically, sorry you didn't get to play, it's over?
We don't need no stinking Badgers. I don't know. Listen, none of it's fair. I mean, absolutely none of it's fair. So I don't have a problem with them actually making that decision. I hope that maybe the NCAA or even some of these individual schools would start to look at age limits, not just like where they fall in terms of the graduation. You got some seniors that are already 30 years old. What are you going to do? Like play another year at 31? So the age factor for me was something they should have been looking at, but I don't have a problem with schools determining what's best for them. This is a very unusual set of circumstances, and it blows for some of these kids, and some of them will make out. You never know. You can't say that just because you weren't able to play this particular year that it was going to be your best year ever, and you were going to go to a league, go to the next level based off of this, another 3 weeks that was left in the season. So I don't really have a problem with it.
Mikey?
Yeah, what sports are we even speaking on? I guess that's one of it.
Like basketball and things of this nature.
You say basketball?
Yeah.
Well, basketball would have been over.
Yeah, basketball would have been over. I mean, I'm with CC on this one, and it's no offense. I think one of the last conversations you and I had, Jeremy, at our watering hole was that it's going to come down to scholarships. How are you going to tell a kid that you promised a scholarship coming in this season, that, man, you can't come in because we're going to let Luke Jenkins stay, one more season so he can fulfill his last season. It's dynamics, and I really never even put it into to a financial thing. But although we know it always comes down to money, but I just put it down to how many players can you have on a team? We have commitments. We have to move forward. We're talking about things sucking. Hell, I had family coming in this next weekend for my birthday. They're not coming in. It sucks. But you know what? We move on. It's going to hurt for these kids. I know LeBron James, I remember the NBA he was talking about, he won't feel fulfilled if the Lakers don't get a chance to go for the championship. Guess what, LeBron? it would suck for you too. This is something that's unique. Hopefully, thank God, we won't have to go through it again, but it will give us a learning experience for, case studies if it does, something of this drastic measure. But, the kids have to get over it. And I believe it will be each school has to take it on their own accord and how they handle it themselves.
Yeah.
Iowa is looking at it as well, and of course, it's not just like you said, it's also financial for the schools. Iowa bringing back but I think between 25 and 30 seniors on their spring sports teams, male and female. It would cost them an additional $500,000 to bring these kids back for their spring seasons. So I can see where the schools have to make those best financial decisions, because you got to understand that Wisconsin alone, with the cancellation of the NCAA tournament and all the championship games and things like that, they're losing out on about $4 million from the spring season alone. Then you add another $500,000 to $1 million. These bigger colleges, all these millions of dollars back on there. There you go. So.
Yeah, that's rough, but it also points you back to kind of what you really gain as a point of playing college sports, and it's perseverance, it's grit, it's tenacity, it's the ability to bounce back. And so most of these kids were not going to play at the next level, but the skills and the relationships that they built as a result of being there on those campuses, earning those scholarships, those are going to be much more powerful things for them throughout their life. And so hopefully the coaches, they got a good coach, help see them through it and catch you on the other side. But, for missing out on 3 weeks of March Madness, I really like.
Well, I mean, I kind of see this as several different issues. I mean, the fact that some of the athletes can't come back for their spring sports, that's a separate issue than from March Madness being canceled. I mean, the March Madness was just there's no way around it. I mean, it had to be scrubbed and nothing could be done. But, it would be interesting to see if Wisconsin would be so fast to say tough luck. You're not getting another year of eligibility if it was in the two major money-making sports, football in the fall and basketball in the winter.
That's why I asked.
Right.
And guess what? I mean, I'm assuming like probably baseball might be like the biggest sport in the spring, but listen, this sucks for everyone. We're going to have a story on LV Sports Biz about the problems with Olympic athletes, the fact that you had a lot of Olympics who were basically peaking for the 2020 games, from the late July to early August. And all of a sudden, guess what? The rug got pulled out from under them, and their event and this Olympic Games will be pushed back one full year. The vast majority of these athletes are not like NBA stars who are going to just have a fun time playing basketball and win a gold medal, or fine, it's it's a great feather in their cap. But for some of these athletes, this is their whole life is wrapped in this. I mean, their whole identity is wrapped in this. And guess what? There's a lot of athletes who lost out on revenue that they were counting on from endorsement deals and such. And that is shelved for one full year. So, I mean, I look at that as like being much more difficult to deal with than college athletes who, it sucks that you can't play your final baseball or tennis career, or field hockey. I mean, if that's what you played, congratulations. I'm really sorry that you can't finish out. But guess what? There were a lot of high school seniors. I love the ESPN Sports Center with Scott Van Pelt when he had that senior night feature every night, when he showed that's the essence of sports. I mean, the seniors who won't be able to finish their basketball careers as a team or what have you, and now that these seniors who won't be able to finish their high school lives as an athlete. That sucks. I mean, it sucks. It's just the whole thing has affected everyone.
Yeah, there's always a standout during March Madness, the Tyus Edneys of the world and those who have like these phenomenal tournaments, and they do get an extra look because of that. But then you think about the magnitude of missing out on an Olympic year and how dialed in your training is. They're like a machine. You know, these athletes are meant to peak at certain times. And I saw a video that Allison Felix, the championship sprinter, posted. She's training in the street on concrete in the hills, somewhere, I think probably like Ladera in Los Angeles. She doesn't have access to any fields right now, and that's what's happening to a lot of these athletes. They're just risking additional injuries in addition to losing out on training time. I mean, it's wild for the Olympic athletes, more so than anybody else right now.
Well, you know what? I have one question. Is that a sponge or is that a pineapple in your glass? I don't know. Every time we blow it up.
Oh, you know what? It's a lemon.
What is happening here?
That's so funny. It's a lemon, and let me tell you, it's getting better. Like the more it sits, because
I'm sorry, man. I
turmeric. It's not. I'm drinking a sponge. I'm drinking the world's worst sponge, okay? Because it's not even soaking up nothing. What's wrong?
You know, that's okay, because we're not going to bring up the fact that you have Paddington Bear behind you as you're on your TV.
Like that? I've been checking that out. Yeah.
And it's got captions too.
Y'all thought I was joking when I said I've been watching children's shows. Y'all thought I was joking. I don't play. Do
we want to know why you're watching children's show at this point?
Some of the best animation was those Bugs Bunny cartoons, man.
Thank you, Ellen. Don't let them mess my day up. Don't take my glean. Don't take my glean. But
a couple of things before we sign off here. A couple more NFL notes here. The Rams have traded wide receiver Brandon Cooks, to the Texans for a second-round draft pick and a future pick, a pick to be named. Cooks helped fuel the Rams' run to the Super Bowl, of course, in 2018 with 80 catches, over 1,200 yards, and 5 touchdowns. But last year, he had a season to forget with 42 receptions, 500 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The last couple of weeks, Bill O'Brien, coach and general manager over there for the Texans, traded away one of the best receivers in the game, DeAndre Hopkins, to Arizona for a ham sandwich and old bottle of mayo. And but so my question to you guys, has Bill O'Brien lost his ever-loving mind?
Well, yeah, he has. He definitely has. I mean, it depends on what he gets back for it, right? We still don't know what that value is, but on paper, man, it looks bad. It looks bad in the locker room too. That's what makes it even worse.
Alan, what do you think?
You know, Houston is kind of a fascinating team. They have some of the biggest stars and most marketable stars in the National Football League. I love the quarterback. I think he's a fabulous personality, and I think he would be a great player to have as kind of a marketing star for not only Houston. And it was disappointing to see the receiver traded. You know, he was a really gifted player. And even J.J. Watt is really one of the more better-known players as well. And I just can't figure out Houston. They're an enigma to me. They have some big-name talent. And I don't know if they're underperforming or just overrated or what, but they're an entertaining team to watch. Deshaun, I think the quarterback is one of the most exciting stars, and because he plays in the same conference as Patrick Mahomes, I think sometimes he's overshadowed because he really is a terrific talent.
MP, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm amazed that ownership is letting O'Brien do the things that he's been doing, and because Jadeveon Clowney was the season before last, we saw that Jadeveon had a pretty decent season with Seattle this past season. And now that he got rid of D-Hop, and like you say, he's a top 5 receiver in the NFL, and you trade him, for what we say, a ham sandwich and some mayo, some old mayo, an old Miracle Whip. Nobody like no damn Miracle Whip. It doesn't make any sense. It's like he's taking 3 steps backwards in order to try to go forward, and he's not going anywhere forward. So what we need to do, and it's like, I think every season we go, well, damn, what did he do? I guess we're going to have to go and see how it plays out on the field. This has to be his last year of us trying to see how it plays out on the field, because like we say, with the gifted quarterback, now he's probably over there gassing Cooks up like, man, I got rid of Hop for you, man. You're going to have to deliver for me, man. you're my dude. You're my dude. Well, the dude better show up.
Yeah, that is 100% true. Now we don't know how of course the NFL season is going to unfold and how this team is, that's been assembled in Houston is going to respond to all of this. Deshaun Watson, like Alan said, is one of the most dynamic quarterbacks outside of Patrick Mahomes, young quarterback outside of Patrick Mahomes, and of course they still have a good defense. Trading DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson and whatever else he got for that. Plus, taking on all of that extra salary, whenever Bill O'Brien said the reason we traded DeAndre Hopkins is that even though he still had 4 or 5 years left on his contract, he wanted a raise, but then trading away and then accepting more salary than you were going to pay.
Well, that's the thing. It would have been interesting to find out what the salary cap hit would have been Cooks versus Hopkins.
Well, we know what it is. It is a lie. That's what it is. Like, they had some personal problems. That's what it came down to, because those dollars don't make any kind of sense. And wasn't Michael Irvin? Did he leak some kind of internal conversation that he had with Hopkins about Bill O'Brien?
I believe so.
Remember that? Yeah. So it was a personality issue more so than a personnel issue. These college coaches, man, I always give them like 24 months to start like showing their behind and figuring out like who actually can coach in the NFL. Because you cannot bring that I'm the leader of this crew mentality in when you got grown men. So you either got it or you don't. But I felt like Bill O'Brien was always trying to prove that he was going to be their leader, and you can't force that on grown men. And I think I agree with Mike. This is the last season where he's going to see how it works out on the field. Other than that, he got to go.
We will see what happens in Houston. It's going to be interesting. Kind of like it's all unfolding for the Las Vegas Raiders. John Gruden traded away Khalil Mack and everyone of any kind of value for nothing. It's very interesting. But on a positive note, he did sign 800-year-old Jason Witten, so that's good.
Yeah.
So that's
and Mario and Marietta.
Yeah. Mariota's in there. So that's gonna be a dumpster fire. Finally, the NBA is finalizing a virtual horse competition. That's gonna. This is how desperate we are for sports. A horse competition live on ESPN starting on April 7th with the first and quarterfinal rounds, and on April 16th they're going to have the championship rounds on April 16th. This is where we are at with this whole thing. Players are going to be filmed competing at home locations on indoor or outdoor courts and compete shot for shot in the traditional playground game. All first round matchups are going to be on Sunday, April 7th from 7 to 9 p.m. on ESPN, with the semifinals and championship happening on April 16th from 9 to 11 Eastern on ESPN. Trae Young, Chris Paul, Zach LaVine, WNBA Hall of Famer Tamika Catchings is among many others that are going to play along. Chauncey Billups, Mike Conley, Paul Pierce, I think, is going to be playing. And a few WNBA players are going to be playing on this one. So, Mike, you are the sports guy. How excited are you to see some semblance of NBA competition on ESPN?
You know what? I am excited about this just because I know how competitive these guys are. This last All-Star game for the NBA, I don't know if you guys had a chance, an opportunity to watch it. It was really competitive. LeBron brought I'm not even going to just bring – everyone brought the heat. You know, I'm just going to sit here and just pull a LeBron shirt like he was just it. But these guys are going to want to prove, it's backyard basketball. It's where we all grew up. So, no, I'm excited to see it. I think it's going to work. I liken this to the Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods scenario that we had several years back. But I think it's going to be obviously more receptive because there aren't any more options. Only game in town. Let's roll, baby.
What do you think, Alan?
Hey, with poor Dana White losing his 249 event, this thing is gonna rule the world.
Yeah.
I think it's going to do monster ratings.
Can we bet it?
I think it would be a lot of fun. I mean, this is what we're down to. I mean, I think it would be fun for, like, personally, I think it'd be fun for some of the, like, retired old timers to throw them in there, like even older guys in The Truth and Chauncey Billups, Mr. Big Shot. I would love to see Charles Barkley out there. I would love to see Barkley out there, man.
That would be funny. Is there a line for it, Alan? Do we know? Can we bet it?
Where is it going to be on ESPN? I think ESPN is a partner, right?
Yeah, it's going to be live on ESPN on Sunday.
Wow.
That's going to be.
Listen, it'll give the sports gamblers something to bet on. Those guys are going crazy.
Yeah, you know what Dana should do is he should have a drinking game between Connor and Khabib and Tony. They should do shots.
Just keep it virtual so they're not in the same room.
Exactly.
I'd hate to see, like, Khabib, like, smash a whiskey bottle over Connor's head, you know?
Oh my God.
Last two standing, actually, they get the contract.
No, you know what, man? That is worth $70. I would pay $70 to see that.
Oh, just turning over cups and glasses and shit.
Only if they were in the room together having a drinking game together.
Oh my God.
No,
Just because you're hoping for violence to break out.
we already had the climbing over cage incident. Like, they can't be in the same room unless they're fighting.
Right. You know, Connor throws water bottles. You know, he throws a bottle at his ass.
It probably will, but that would make for the best TV. So that's it. That's what our live sports is right now. So we have NBA. Apparently, Cece was just murdered.
Looks like Cassandra is kind of headed out early there.
What happened? Wait, I'm trying to.
Darkness.
Wait, where'd you go? Okay.
You hear you. Oh, there you
It's all the ginger. I'm hype.
She's the sportsnista, not the technista. So it is what it is. Anything to add before we go, guys? Thank you so much for participating.
Oh, dude, this is fun. Wait, what?
I got one thing I want people to pay attention to is Google the Anthony Smith story. The number 3 light heavyweight in the world. His house was there was an attempted. I don't even know if the guy was trying to rob him. Someone entered his home at 3 a.m. through an opened garage door, and like I said, he is the number 3 ranked light heavyweight in the world, and this 170-pound 22-year-old gave him the business. Although from police reports and now the hospital report that's leaked, the kid was pretty badly beaten, but it was rough going in the house. He has 3 young girls, and the wife had to scurry and get the girls kind of not out the way, but keep them out of harm's way from coming out of their room, while Anthony, who is currently in training camp. So it's not like he was sitting back and eating popsicles or whatever. He's in training camp and encountered someone. Basically, he's probably on several drugs. He kind of had that crackhead strength, from what I understand, in the fight. But a wild story, and to see him tell it, he was very shook by it. I think it's different when you fight for a living and there's rules, as opposed to somebody busting into your house and ain't no rules. That's a different kind of fight. So you should Google that and see him tell that story and how it went down.
All right, I'll do that. Yeah,
That is
I like it. I got nothing, man. I'm living an isolated life. Thank you guys for chiming in with me. I've just learned something. Google.
Go.
You can Google on your TV next to Paddington.
And Alan, before we go, Alan, tell everybody where they can find all those awesome stories, you and CC and your whole team.
Yeah, we have a lot of interesting things on lbsportsbiz.com. We have a really cool story on the Olympics and the lost opportunities for some of the Olympians. That's going to be a special column that will be published sometime tomorrow. And check out the 2 stories that we have on right now. I think you'll have an opinion about how teams should deal with the virus situation in terms of getting their arenas ready, and also the Dana White 249 situation. So we have some really cool guest contributors besides Cassandra. We also have a new lawyer who will be adding some legal takes on sports business topics. And we also have a terrific sports marketing person out of San Diego who will actually be also working on a story tomorrow about how teams should re-engage with their fans, how they're going to kind of reintegrate themselves into American society.
Oh, very cool. Very, very cool, man. Absolutely. You know, shout out to our boy Rick Burdine, who's leaving us some messages there. Pretty Ricky says, "What's up, Mike? Your beard's all white." He can't believe it.
Hey, come on now. You know, if I took the hat off, I'd scare everybody.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey,
Let the guy isolate in peace there, you know?
That's it. Repping my girls' basketball league, Fever
I was
basketball.
going to
you
ask
go.
you about that.
That's a real collectible.
You see right there the Golden State Bridge. So a lot of great girls come from that environment, and they go national, local. You know, they get down when they can get down. So I want to shout out Mikhail Price and her team, Fever Basketball. Also want to say what's going on for our guy who supports everything out there, Trent Keenan. What's going on, Trent Keenan, Diamondback Land Surveying, and Mr. Mark Berg of Mossberg Injury Lawyer. Guys, keep your head up, and we'll see you soon.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys taking time out, joining to talk about sports. Let's do it again soon, man.
All right, be safe, guys.
All right, guys.
This bump, not.